Imagine this. You stand on the precipice of a yawning cavern, its mouth black as obsidian. The air at your feet trembles, as though the darkness itself is breathing. A single flickering torch in your hand casts dancing shadows against walls that vanish into infinity. It's silent, eerily so, as if time has forgotten this place. You feel a pull, an almost gravitational tug, urging you to step forward. And yet you hesitate, because somewhere in the back of your mind, you know that once you cross the threshold, you won't be the same. What would it feel like to descend into a place where your deepest fears swirl together, where loneliness, despair, and wonder merge into a single, pulsing abyss? What if that darkness isn't out there, but inside you, an unmapped territory of the mind you've been taught to avoid at all costs? Here's the paradox that jolts you awake. The abyss terrifies you not merely because it is unknown, but because it is your unknown. You've built walls around your psyche, routines, beliefs, roles, to keep your edges neat, your emotions tolerable, your life orderly. Yet the moment you peer into the void, you sense something far more alive than any comfort you've stitched together. A raw, silent energy that hums with possibility and danger in the same breath. What lives in that liminal space between terror and allure? Why does the idea of peering into your own darkness summon dread beyond any fear of failure or loss? You've felt it before, in the hollow ache when you're alone at night, in the sudden rush of panic before speaking your truth, in the hollow comfort of distractions that leave you restless moments later. That is the abyss calling. It asks urgent questions. What happens if you stop pretending you're fine? What do you discover when you follow your panic instead of fleeing from it? You strip away every label, successful, safe, sane. What remains at the center of your being? These aren't idle curiosities. They are demands, echoes of a part of you you've locked away, convinced it was too frightening, too uncontrollable, too real to allow in. Yet here you are, torch in hand, teetering between retreat and surrender. You might tell yourself this is just metaphor. It's just fear. It's just your imagination. But the signs are unmistakable. That restless anxiety at every crossroads. That secret longing for something you cannot name. That sense, no matter how many distractions you chase, that you are skirting the edges of something vast and unknowable. What if the true journey you've been avoiding is not out there in the world, but in here, in the unmapped caverns of your own mind? To explore the abyss is to confront the dark matter of your psyche, the impulses you deem unacceptable, the memories you swore you buried, the questions you dread asking yourself. Who am I when no one is watching? What truth would I face if I stopped pretending? And here's the greatest tension of all. Most counsel you to stay away from that darkness, to fill it with light, to sanitize it with optimism. But could it be that the real harm isn't in the abyss itself, but in your refusal to enter it? What have you sacrificed to remain safely above ground? Your authenticity, your creativity, your capacity to feel the full spectrum of life? What if the thing you fear most, your own darkness, is the gateway to something more alive, more expansive, more you than you've ever known? You cannot unhear the abyss's question once it calls your name. It reverberates through your days. Are you brave enough to descend? The torch in your hand flickers, its light trembling as if caught between two destinies. One path leads back to the familiar glow of certainty, the other into the endless black. You take a breath, feeling the weight of everything you've ever hidden pressing on your chest. And yet, in that moment, you realize, to know the abyss is not to be swallowed by it, but to uncover the contours of your own soul. What lies beyond this edge will redefine you. Are you ready to step forward? The abyss is not just a dramatic metaphor. It is a living presence within every human being. But if it lives inside all of us, why are we so terrified to face it? Why do we instinctively recoil from our own inner depths? The answer lies buried beneath centuries of psychological conditioning and cultural programming. The fear isn't just of darkness, it's of confronting the truth about ourselves. From birth, we are shaped by forces we never chose. Society hands us scripts: be productive, be good, be normal. Schools teach us to follow rules, not to question them. Parents, doing their best, often pass down their own unresolved fears. Religion sometimes sanctifies denial, labeling inner chaos as sin rather than a signpost. And media constantly whispers that we are not enough unless we buy, change, improve. Somewhere in that avalanche of messages, we learn that parts of us are unacceptable. Our rage, our lust, our envy, our despair, these are not to be explored, only managed or hidden. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the disowned self that lives in the basement of our psyche. People will do anything, he wrote, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Jung believed that integration, not suppression, was the path to wholeness. But integration requires us to first look, and that gaze into the unknown is what we fear most. We fear that if we allow ourselves to feel too deeply, we'll be overwhelmed. We fear that if we question too much, we'll unravel. We fear that if we explore the abyss, we'll become it. Friedrich Nietzsche, perhaps more intimately than any other philosopher, understood this terror. If you gaze long enough into the abyss, he warned, the abyss also gazes into you. That wasn't a threat. It was a recognition that to confront your inner void is to awaken something ancient and uncontrollable. Nietzsche's abyss is not a passive space. It's an active mirror. It does not simply reflect what we know. It reveals what we've denied, our unacknowledged drives, our buried trauma, our existential fragility. Yet modern society offers no training for this confrontation. In fact, it offers the opposite: escape through constant stimulation, denial through toxic positivity, distraction through consumption and entertainment. We are taught to manage symptoms, not to interrogate origins, to numb rather than to feel. And so the abyss grows. It expands in the silence between two people afraid to speak the truth. It deepens in the man who laughs loudly but cannot sleep alone. It widens in the woman whose perfection hides her despair. It sharpens in the child told to stop crying, to stop feeling, to stop being inconvenient. Arthur Schopenhauer viewed life as suffering, not as pessimism, but as clarity. The abyss is the recognition that pain is not a detour but a foundation. Our desire to escape it, he argued, is what enslaves us. We fear our inner abyss because we have been lied to, told that life should be happy, safe, and tidy if only we try hard enough. But existence in its raw form is not tidy. It is sublime chaos. Jean-Paul Sartre took this further, suggesting that the abyss reveals our freedom, and that is precisely why it terrifies us. When all structures dissolve, when we are face to face with nothingness, we realize there is no script, no given meaning, no rescue, just us, and the terrifying responsibility of creating ourselves. That burden, the need to choose to define our own purpose, is overwhelming. It's easier to retreat into comfort, conformity, identity. Easier to fear the abyss than to enter it and claim it as our own. Viktor Frankl, in the darkest conditions imaginable, discovered the opposite. In Auschwitz, surrounded by death and despair, he wrote that man's deepest drive is not pleasure, as Freud claimed, but meaning. And meaning, Frankl insisted, is often born in suffering. Could it be then that the abyss is not a prison, but a crucible? That its darkness is not the end of self, but the beginning of something more real than we've ever dared to be? The modern psyche is fractured because it is starved of this confrontation. We are strangers to our own souls. And this disconnection breeds addiction, anxiety, depression, not as dysfunctions, but as symptoms, warnings, invitations. Every suppressed emotion, every denied truth, every exiled desire becomes a shadow at the edge of consciousness, pulling us toward the abyss we fear, but secretly crave. And here is the cruel irony. The more we avoid the abyss, the more power it gains. What we bury grows teeth. What we refuse to face begins to rule us from within. So we return to Jung, who said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The hidden problem is not the abyss, it's our cultural fear of it. Our refusal to teach others how to walk through it. Our insistence on pretending it doesn't exist. You think you've been avoiding the abyss, But what if it's been shaping your life from the shadows all along? It's easy to believe that because we've never consciously gazed into our inner void, it has no power. But that is the most dangerous illusion of all. What is repressed doesn't die, it mutates. The abyss you flee becomes the architect of your patterns, your habits, your fears. It wears masks so familiar you mistake them for your personality. Imagine a man who avoids conflict at all costs. He smiles through pain, appeases everyone, and prides himself on being the peaceful one. But beneath that calm exterior festers rage. Rage he was never allowed to express as a child. Rage he now buries so deeply that it poisons his relationships, leaks out in passive aggression, or worse, implodes into depression. The abyss has already entered him. Or imagine a woman obsessed with productivity, addicted to achievement. She wakes up at 5 a.m., checks tasks off with religious fervor, and fears stillness like a predator. She doesn't know that her busyness is a defense mechanism, a distraction from a core belief that without external validation, she is nothing. That core belief, a whisper from the abyss. These are not outliers. These are modern archetypes, ordinary people haunted by what they refuse to confront. And it's not just individuals. Societies too are shaped by the abyss. Consumerism, at its root, is a collective attempt to fill an existential hole. If you can't face your void, buy something to distract yourself. A new phone, a new face, a new belief system. It doesn't matter what, as long as it keeps you from hearing the silence. Even our spiritual practices are not immune. Meditation apps, positive vibes-only mantras, and commodified mindfulness often serve as ways to polish the surface while avoiding the depth. We meditate to relax, not to awaken. We pray to feel safe, not to confront divine terror. The abyss is not absence. It is the fullness of everything you've refused to feel. Let's take a closer look through the lens of neuroscience. The human brain is wired for survival, not truth. The amygdala, responsible for detecting threats, cannot distinguish between an emotional threat and a physical one. When we begin to feel something too intense, grief, shame, guilt, the brain responds with the same chemical flood it would release if we were being hunted. So what do? We run. We avoid hard conversations. We bury trauma. We escape into screens, substances, shallow pleasures. This is not weakness, it's biology. But it's also a trap. Cognitive biases compound the problem. The confirmation bias ensures we only see evidence that supports our preferred narrative. I'm fine. The status quo bias pushes us to maintain the familiar, even if it's killing us. The illusion of control tricks us into thinking that if we keep everything predictable, nothing will break. But something already has. It broke the moment we decided that pain had no place in our story. Here's the great tragedy. The abyss we fear is often the birthplace of our deepest potential. The grief we suppress could have deepened our compassion. The fear we ignored could have taught us courage. The trauma we buried could have made us healers. Instead, we become prisoners. Prisoners of perfectionism, of people-pleasing, of anxiety, masked as ambition, of addictions disguised as preferences. The abyss doesn't need to swallow you whole. It only needs you to keep running. Because as long as you run, you never stop to ask, what's actually chasing me? Look around. A society addicted to antidepressants, yet lonelier than ever. A culture that worships success, yet produces empty souls. A world connected by technology, yet starved for genuine intimacy. These are not random symptoms. They are the echoes of an unfaced void. Jean-Paul Sartre spoke of bad faith, the lie we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of freedom. We adopt roles. We become the reliable one, the achiever, the joker, not because it's who we are, but because it spares us the agony of asking who we could be if we stripped everything away. And the abyss? It waits beneath every role, until one day, the mask cracks, the job is lost, the relationship ends, the body breaks, and suddenly the void can no longer be ignored. What you refuse to confront in peacetime now comes for you in crisis. The panic attack that comes out of nowhere, the midlife collapse that shatters everything, the existential despair that no amount of therapy or self-help can numb. But here's the paradox. The abyss is not here to destroy you. It's here to end the false you. It's a demolition of illusions, not a death sentence. But if you've spent your whole life identifying with those illusions, then yes, it feels like dying. Carl Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. These unseen consequences, our breakdowns, addictions, discontent, are not fate. They are messages. They are the abyss knocking. So ask yourself, what if the ache you feel isn't a sign that something is wrong with you, but that something buried in you is trying to come alive? What if your sadness isn't weakness, but depth calling you back to yourself? What if your restlessness is the soul's rebellion against a shallow life? This is the real danger, not that we will be consumed by darkness, but that we will live shallow lives avoiding it. The abyss doesn't destroy, it reveals. And that revelation, if we are brave enough to face it, is the beginning of everything we thought we were looking for elsewhere. But how? How do we stop running and turn to face the one thing we've spent our lives avoiding? How do we reclaim the parts of ourselves we were taught to exile? The next chapter is not about survival, it's about rebellion. Because facing the abyss isn't about surrendering to it. It's about learning how to walk through it and come out the other side transformed. Imagine waking up in a cell you didn't know you were in. The walls aren't made of stone or steel. They're made of beliefs, inherited fears, secondhand truths, unquestioned habits. You've decorated the cell with comforts and distractions, made it livable, even beautiful. But one day something cracks. A question seeps in, a hunger, a realization so jarring it tears through the illusion. This isn't freedom. This is the beginning of rebellion, not against others, but against the false self you've been conditioned to wear. The self that avoids conflict to maintain peace. The self that smiles through misery. The self that hustles to earn worth. The self that conforms to survive. This rebellion is not loud at first. It begins in whispers. What if I said what I really think? What if I let myself cry? What if I stopped pretending? These questions are dangerous, not because they destroy the world, but because they destroy the false world, the counterfeit identity, the ego's kingdom built on fear and approval. To rebel is to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. But where do you begin? Start with radical self-honesty, not the curated vulnerability we display on social media, not the kind that says, I'm being real, while still hiding the unbearable truths. No, radical honesty is looking into your own eyes and admitting the secrets you buried under years of performance. Carl Jung called this process shadow integration. The shadow is everything you've denied, repressed, or deemed unacceptable about yourself. Your anger, your envy, your desire, your fear. But here's the twist. Your shadow also contains your creativity, your power, your capacity for love. To reject it is to reject your wholeness. You were never meant to be light only. You are the entire spectrum. When you begin this inner rebellion, it will feel like betrayal. Because it is. It's a betrayal of the persona, the mask that has protected you. It's also the deepest act of loyalty to your true self. And yet, most people won't support you. Some will call you selfish. Others will say you've changed, and they'll be right. You're no longer conforming to their version of you. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them grieve the version of you they controlled. This is your life now. This is the cost of liberation. But rebellion isn't only internal. It must spill into how you live. And that begins with confronting the systems around you, the ones that fed your illusions. Look at modern culture. It rewards speed, but depth takes time. It rewards appearance, but authenticity is messy. It rewards certainty, but growth requires doubt. To rebel is to slow down in a world obsessed with acceleration. It's to rest in a culture that worships hustle. It's to feel deeply in an environment that numbs everything. This isn't easy, but you are not the first to walk this path. Nietzsche warned that in order to give birth to a dancing star, one must first carry chaos within. Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, taught that man's ultimate freedom is the ability to choose his attitude in any given circumstance. Aldous Huxley saw that true freedom was not pleasure, but the capacity to see reality clearly. These men didn't just philosophize, they lived the rebellion. And so can you. Here's how rebellion manifests in practice. You stop lying to yourself, even when the truth hurts, especially when it hurts. You say no, not out of anger, but out of sacred boundaries. You rest, not to recharge for more doing, but to reclaim your right to simply be. You create, even if what you make is imperfect. Creation is rebellion against the void. You speak, even if your voice shakes, especially if it shakes. You love, not as a strategy, but as a wild, unguarded offering. You start to live by a new compass, not success, not approval, but aliveness. What makes you feel more awake? What makes your heart beat louder? What scares you in a way that feels like growth? Follow that. This rebellion will break things. That's how you know it's working. Old friendships may fall away. Identities will collapse. False comforts will vanish. You'll mourn them like lost lovers. But in their absence, something new grows. Something ancient. Something true. And with this new life comes paradox. You become softer and stronger, more vulnerable and more powerful, more open and more boundaried. You stop needing answers and gain wisdom instead. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about unbecoming everything that isn't you. You will realize that the abyss you feared is not a punishment. It's a portal. It is not the enemy. It is the fire that burns away the unnecessary. And if you can endure that burning, you emerge something else entirely. Not the perfect version of yourself, the true version, the one who knows how to sit with fear instead of being ruled by it, the one who can love without needing to be loved back, the one who can cry in public and laugh in solitude, the one who can walk through darkness and not flinch, and perhaps most importantly, the one who no longer sees the abyss as something to escape, but something to embrace. Because only when you embrace it, can you walk through it. Only when you walk through it, can you be reborn. And this is the final paradox. To become whole, you must first break. To be free, you must first rebel. And to truly live, you must be willing to die to who you thought you were. But what lies beyond the rebellion? What remains after the masks fall, the illusions die, and the fire of the abyss consumes everything false? You are ready now. The final revelation awaits. Imagine standing at the edge of everything you thought was real. Your beliefs, your pain, your stories, burned to ash. The roles you played, the masks you wore, the identities you clung to for comfort, all gone. What remains is silence, but not the silence of absence. This is a pregnant silence, a silence that waits, listens, breathes, and in that silence, one final question surfaces, not from your mind, but from something deeper. Who am I if I am none of this? Not your name, not your job, not your trauma, not your titles or accolades, not even your thoughts. Who are you when nothing is left to hold on to? This is the threshold few dare to cross. It's the place where the ego dies, but something else is born. Something more ancient than your suffering, more sacred than your persona, something terrifying in its simplicity. You are awareness. You are presence. You are the one who sees. Not the actor in the story, but the one watching it unfold. The stage, the play, the script. You are not any of it. You are the space that holds it all. This is the abyss's final gift. Not fear, but freedom. Not chaos, but clarity. Not death, but resurrection. You were never meant to conquer the abyss. You were meant to become intimate with it, to learn its language, to let it strip you down, not to destroy you, but to reveal you. Because here's the secret they never told you. The abyss is not outside of you. The abyss is you. It is your unexplored depths, your unlived potential, your suppressed desires, your divine rage, your buried love, your numbed-out beauty, all waiting to be felt, known, freed. You feared it because it mirrored your truth. You ran from it because it showed you how much you've forgotten. But now, standing naked before it, you understand. The abyss is a mirror, not a monster. It reflects your soul's hunger for wholeness. And that hunger is not a flaw. It's a compass. Every craving, every ache, every wound, every dream you were told was too much. They weren't distractions, they were breadcrumbs. And now you followed them home. Home is not a place. It's not safety or certainty. It's the ability to remain fully present in the mystery. That is the final realization. You do not need to escape the void. You need to become conscious within it. This is where philosophies collapse, where self-help ends, where theology dissolves into wonder. Because no map can guide you through a terrain that is uniquely yours. The only compass left is your felt sense of truth. You'll notice it in the way certain lies no longer stick, in the way your body relaxes when you speak from the soul, in the way you stop explaining your decisions to people who never truly saw you, in the way you can now sit with pain and not need it to disappear. Because finally you understand, pain is not the enemy, desire is not dangerous, fear is not failure. They are all sacred messengers, and when you stop fighting them, they become allies. Now you walk differently, not faster, not slower, just truer. You speak differently, not louder, not softer, just cleaner. Your eyes no longer scan for approval. They rest in awareness. Your love is no longer bargaining. It's offering. You don't need to be understood anymore. You are understanding. This is not enlightenment. It's not some final form. It's not transcendence of the human experience. It's full immersion in it. It's realizing you are not just spirit in a body. You are the storm and the silence, the seeker and the found, the question and the answer. You carry the abyss now, not as a burden, but as a beacon. Others will feel it in your presence. They'll say you feel calm, that you feel real, that there's something about you they can't explain. You won't need them to explain it, because you will know, you will remember that you have passed through the fire and emerged not burned, but baptized. This is what it means to be alive, not to avoid pain, but to find meaning in it, not to chase happiness, but to hold space for sorrow, not to seek purpose, but to become present. The abyss taught you that you are not here to be perfect. You are here to be whole, and wholeness includes everything, even the darkness, even the doubts, even the days you fall apart again. Because now, you know how to return. Now, you are your own home. Let others fear the abyss. You have seen its face, and it looks like truth. And so, you walk forward, not away from it, but with it. The abyss doesn't haunt you anymore. It walks beside you like an old friend. Because the final, most powerful realization is this: you feared the abyss, but the abyss was only ever trying to return you to yourself.